been too long, but who cares about that? Because guess who's back for 2024? Our favourite person in the media world, none other than the wonderful Megyn Kelly, joining us from the United States. And isn't there a bit of news for us to talk about this year?
There certainly is. Happy New Year to you, straight from Donald Trump, who's feeling really happy today.
Yeah, correct. Now, what about, just imagine Trump world, right? So we all know he absolutely smashes it in Iowa, most likely puts to bed any real challenges. He's probably going to end up being the nominee. Then there's a court case today to work out how much he's got to pay a person that he's previously been found to have defamed. And then he goes to New Hampshire later tonight, your time, where people have been queuing since 5 a.m. Talk about the emotions of feeling really loved and really not loved in 24 hours.
I don't think Trump ever feels not loved. He doesn't have that gear. I think everybody who runs for president and certainly makes it has a bit of narcissism. Trump is definitely a narcissist, and it works for him. And I don't think if you're a narcissist, you don't think about anybody not loving you. It's why you get so mad when people aren't nice to you or don't see you as amazing as you see yourself. Like, I don't get it. It's like the information isn't flowing the way the circuit breakers have made it, set up to flow. Anyway, it is amazing to see the people standing out in very cold temperatures in New Hampshire just to catch a glimpse of him. And look, it speaks to the thing about Trump. He's not just the former leader of the free world and the guy very possibly going to be the next one. He's a star. He's a celebrity. And it's like he's literally the most famous person in the world now. And once he's back on the national stage and he's getting his swagger back because he got this big victory last night and he's really looking he's definitely looking inevitable for the nomination, maybe beyond that. People just want to catch a glimpse of him. They want to be there to see the magic. And I'm sure the rallies are going to be repopulated in a way they haven't been recently. It's all starting to flow for him.
Now, obviously, there are, cable news shows that are covering the election in real time, and you've had that experience, as have I, which often means there's sometimes some really stupid things that get said or some over-analysis that happens. The joy of this quick conversation is we can just straight shoot here. Trump's going to be the nominee. Literally, it's a court. That's the only reason that he would not end up being the person on the Republican side of the ballot. I know that, yes, technically there's New Hampshire next week and then there's South Carolina a month after that. But if people are willing to sit in the snow from 5 a.m. for 12 hours to see you, and then you're beating Nikki Haley in her home state, it's game over. It's done.
Mm-hmm. Look, even if Nikki Haley wins New Hampshire, it's done. Realistically, with all due respect to her and Ron DeSantis, DeSantis, it was not a win. It was nothing close to a win. He did not, quote, earn a ticket out of Iowa. He needed to beat Trump. The only way for them to wrest control of this thing away from Trump, who was already running away with it in the polls, was for DeSantis to handily defeat Trump in Iowa, for Haley to do the same to him in New Hampshire, and then to reset the field by the time they got down to South Carolina, so that maybe one of them could take it away from him there, weakening him before we go into Super Tuesday. He beat them both by 30 points plus in Iowa yesterday. She is not well positioned to win. There was only one poll showing her within, I think, 7 points of him in New Hampshire. All the others have shown him handily beating Nikki in New Hampshire. And she didn't do anything last night to change her trajectory. She's like, I can now officially say it's a two-person race. Between whom? You're not one of them. I don't know what she's. So, look, I respect that they're running, and I don't want to say as a journalist you're done, but as a commentator, it certainly looks to me like they're done, and it's fine to let it play out. We've only got another couple of weeks left of this, but that party needs to get behind Trump as soon as they come to reality and robustly, because it's now in, I think, the country's best interest, but certainly in the Republican Party's best interest, to make sure he is adequately funded to defeat these legal challenges. Otherwise, we're going to get 4 more years of a man who cannot find his way from the left side of the room to the right side, or his right-hand woman who has got about 2 sentences she strings together to try to sound like she knows what she's talking about. And it's obvious to the rest of us she doesn't.
Now, obviously, Vivek Ramaswamy, he got single digits and he went, that's it, I'm out. But he straight away endorsed Trump in the same speech as when he was pulling out. He wasn't sort of waiting a day or two to negotiate a position as the transport secretary or any of that garbage. And interestingly, I reckon one of the reasons why we got quiet Trump, charming Trump, as you referred to him on your radio show on Sirius XM today, is because I think that Haley and DeSantis are being offered 24, 48 hour amnesty to quietly fall in behind, or we're going to completely torch how voters feel about them, not just in this election, but in future elections.
That's an interesting theory. It could be. And look, they have nothing to lose at this point. They know they're not going to get this nomination. They may be thinking, I want to be second in line just in case he falls apart. But that, too, would require Trump's endorsement. That, too, requires Trump to say, OK, I'll pass the baton to you in this imaginary world in which he's sitting in a prison saying, gee, I guess I can't do it. Who do I pass the baton to? All this is make-believe. So it's very hard to tell somebody who's losing that they've actually lost and it's time to throw in the towel when they've given it their all. Vivek, he had no chance. I mean, it was over for him a long time ago. This was just a name-building operation for him, and he's done that. He can check his box. He can have a more successful podcast or whatever it is he's looking to do right now. You know, he never distinguished himself from Trump anyway. So what was the downside in saying, yeah, guess what? Surprise, I'm Team Trump. It's like, we knew all along. And now there's a lot of chatter, Paul, about whether Nikki Haley has some sort of momentum not to become the nominee, but to become the VP nominee over the strong objections of hardcore MAGA.
Yeah, hardcore MAGA not having it. And if they think they're running the table, well, most likely they're going to get what they want. Also, what about MSNBC? It is fun to watch super lefties explode when Trump doesn't just do well, but he flogs the rest of the field. And of course, it's all to do with racism, sexism, homophobia, misogyny, evil Christians. What about Joy Reid last night?
I mean, it's the elephant in the room. She's still a brown lady that's got to try to win in a party that is deeply anti-immigrant and which accepts the notion that you can say immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country.
Joy Reid and others suggesting the reason the Republicans are never going to get behind Nikki Haley is because she's brown. She has brown skin, and the Republicans hate people with brown skins. They hate the black people and the brown people. Everyone knows this, and that's why Nikki Haley, who was governor of a deep South state, who was made UN ambassador and who, is atop the polls after Trump right now, is secretly loathed by Republicans. I don't quite follow the rationale. And then the other commentators over on MSNBC were talking about how the real yesterday, even though Trump was 51%, it was bad news for him. Bad. Because he's only at 51%. And, the former sitting president only got 51% of the vote. Can you imagine Barack Obama went back in there and ran? He wouldn't get 51% of the vote. Okay, that's Barack Obama. Well, let's talk about reality. Your president right now is Joe Biden. And 77% of the country thinks he's too old, including over 60% of Democrats think he's too old. 2/3 of Democrats think someone else should be running. How do you think his poll would go if you people would allow a primary, which you won't? Right? Are we actually pretending that, I realize the Republican Party doesn't entirely want Trump, but more Republicans want Trump than Democrats want Joe Biden. It's just the Democrats are a lot more effective at keeping people out of their primary.
And remember when Iowa had the chance to vote in 2020, Joe Biden came fourth. Remember, his candidacy was dead until he was able to do a deal in South Carolina. And then once he won South Carolina, and because African-American voters are the main ones that will end up voting in southern primaries, he ended up stitching together the wins that Trump is about to do as well. So please, they don't even remember their own history. But also, I love, let's also call a spade here, right? Which is, even if Nikki Haley became the nominee, they would pretend that she was Trump in a skirt. These were the people who said that, remember, Mitt Romney, boring Mitt Romney, had binders full of women, when, of course, he was referring to the amount of CVs that he had of female executives. Remember when John McCain was, the devil incarnate, and then when he ended up losing, he then became the Lion of the Senate. Anyone with an R next to their name, even if they were the exact identity politics MSNBC wants, well, they'll turn around and say that, you know, that they're not really authentic, or, you know, what's the racial term? Coconut.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, 100% they'll do that to her. They would do it to DeSantis. They'd do it to any of these candidates. And this is why I think so many Republicans favor Trump, because they see what a fighter he is. They see how he's got this weird innate ability to smack down these attacks time and time again. I mean, who among us would be standing on their feet able to smile and crack jokes when we are facing 4 criminal indictments in the next year by these rabid prosecutors who want to throw us in jail for the rest of our lives? Most of us would have crumbled long before now. So I think, you know, most of the Republican Party is looking at Trump saying they're going to do this to everybody. They'll make everybody into the devil, for sure. There already were headlines about DeSantis saying he'll be even worse, even more dangerous, more of an authoritarian, more of a dictator, more of all the terrible things than Trump, when they thought he was catching fire. And they'll do it to Nikki Haley in a different way, too. And they look at Trump and think he's the only one who knows how to fight them. He's the only one who has fought them super effectively. DeSantis did well on COVID, but that's one. Trump's taken them on every level, on every subject, and doesn't seem fazed in the least by them. So I get the feeling that he's got the steely spine, and he might be the only one who can fight them.
You've got this incredible story about a lady who filmed herself getting fired. I'll get to that in a second, but I do want to ask one quick last one about Trump, and it's sort of two-pronged. The Supreme Court will hear oral arguments in early February about whether or not states like Colorado and Maine will be able to knock him off the ballot. I know that you've said in the past that you think this thing can be beaten 9-0, that it won't stand up. But isn't this the same in the Supreme Court that constantly says states' rights all the time?
Yeah, but this is a matter of constitutional interpretation. So this is well within their purview. I mean, they get the final say on what the 14th Amendment is and means. And I don't think this is a hard one. And I think they'll find some way out of it without getting into whether he committed an insurrection or any of that stuff. They're just going to say, no, it doesn't apply to the executive, or there's several sort of out clauses that they could use to, you know, get out of deciding it on those grounds. And I think they will, and they'll get rid of it quickly. I don't think this is a threat to Trump.
And then what about some of these dodgy prosecutors, the ones that either end up getting charged themselves with federal crimes?
This is my favorite story of the 2 weeks or 4 weeks now. What is it that we missed each other? My favorite
Too
story
long.
popped up. So Fani Willis is the DA going after Trump in Atlanta, Georgia. And she's one of those prosecutors who's like, you know, it's all about her, you know, like, I'm a good Christian-fearing woman and I'm just doing my business and I'm just about justice and fairness. Well, it may be more complicated than that. Turns out that Fani Willis is allegedly having an affair with a guy she brought in as special prosecutor. Well, that's not ideal, all right? It's already a little hinky. And that guy happens to have been married up until very recently when they filed for divorce papers, and Fani Willis is named in the papers and is about to be deposed by that soon-to-be ex-wife's lawyers. Why is that? So Fani and her special prosecutor she's brought in and paying an exorbitant number have been traveling the world together. And the allegation is it's essentially on the taxpayer's dime, because this guy's getting paid hand over fist to be a special prosecutor, $650,000 in the past year plus alone. Most of the DAs in her office probably make 60, 70 grand a year. He's getting 650 plus. And they went to Napa Valley together. They went to Jamaica together. They went down to Florida together. It's wonderful to be a prosecutor of Donald Trump. It pays big, and you get to be out on a lounge chair with a fun coconut drink. It stinks, and it creates, at a minimum, the appearance of impropriety, and very possibly an actual conflict of interest in which she now has a financial stake in this prosecution continuing, which is totally antithetical to the duties of a prosecutor who's not there to seek convictions. She's there to seek justice. So if the facts come out that he didn't do it, or this case looks weak, you're supposed to be the person who can say, the interests of justice are, I dropped this. But if you don't get to go to Jamaica anymore, if Napa Valley had such the tasty wine, I really want to get back there, but I can't afford it without the special prosecutor money this boyfriend of mine is getting, you've created a problem for yourself. So one of the defendants stumbled upon those divorce papers, which are now under seal, but weren't when she found them. She's filed a motion, and Fani and the special prosecutor have both been asked about it. Neither one has denied it. Now Fani's trying to play the victim and say this is all a racist plot.
Racist, of course. So
and
racist.
The special prosecutor.
Yeah, so racist.
I love the whole story.
Yeah, it is spectacular. All right, last one here. Somebody gets fired as a salesperson for a company but decides to film it.
Yeah, I'm going to stop you right there.
Sure.
So I started August 25th. I've been on a 3-month ramp, and then it was 3 weeks of December, and then a week of Christmas, and then here we are. I have had the highest activity amongst my team.
Is she the hero, or is the company, going to sue her for illegally recording something?
Okay. What this is about is whiny, weak, woke youngsters who don't understand how the world works. This woman finds out she's going to be riffed or fired. You know, the word must have gone around the company. They're calling people, laying them off. So she decides to set up her phone to tape the HR people as they come for her. And her piece of the conversation is all on camera with her trying to assert dominance as she's being fired by HR.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to need to stop you right there. I'm going to need an explanation as to exactly why I've been fired. And I dispute any allegation about my performance. And I need the specifics. I am demanding this. Right? It's HR. They don't give reasons anymore. Unless they have to by contract. This is the new thing in HR. They don't have to tell you why you're being fired. And they don't because they don't want to get sued, etc. So you have no right. You don't run the corporation. You're not in a position to make demands of the corporation. And she posts this, Paul. She secretly records this thing with 2 HR lackeys who probably don't even know why she's getting fired. They're probably just reading the script that the manager gave her, like, please fire this annoying person. Yep. And so they're trying to do it. She's taping them and she posts it. Why? Because she wants to look like the victim and the heroine at the same time. I've been wrongly fired, and look at me asserting my power, demanding answers, and then holding corporate America responsible for the way they treat young people in this terrible economy. No, not it, sister. Almost everyone's been fired or didn't get a job that they really wanted or had a professional disappointment. And you know what the most of us do, what most responsible, mature people do? They go, they have a drink, they have a cry, they hug their loved one, they feel crappy for about a day, and then they pick themselves up, dust themselves off, and move on. They don't tape the outgoing employer. They don't try to blame someone other than, they don't try to look tough by demanding answers, and I will interrupt you so that I get the information I feel. You know what? Getting fired, getting a demotion, getting rejected from an opportunity is itself an opportunity for you. It wasn't a good match. And when you do things that are crappy to an employer, like tape them without telling them, you know what you do? You invite retaliation. What the company did, not the illegal kind, the justified kind. The CEO of the company then felt the need to comment on exactly why she got booted after 3 months. We can tell when you're crappy at sales right away. And guess what, sister? You were. So she went from being part of a riff where nobody'd be like, oh, okay, maybe it was a budget thing, to, oh, she's bad. She can't sell. She invited it. You know what you do? You say it wasn't meant to be. Didn't work out between me and them. I don't know why I wasn't kept and others were. But it's a comment on me by a company that I could take to heart and ask myself, how can I do better? How can I try harder? How can the next time I not be the whiny, annoying one who tapes people, but the one who gets kept because I've worked so hard and I've been so good they can't ignore me? Instead of doing that kind of self-reflection, this generation goes right to victimhood and doing surreptitious, unethical, weird things like taping the employer. It's wrong. I don't like where society's going. And I really think these young people need to understand, work harder, do better, stop blaming others, blame yourself. Even if you don't feel that it's justified, it's empowering, and it creates a crisis. It creates an opportunity out of a crisis. It's really simple.
I agree completely. I couldn't help but think, though, if this is how she behaves as she loses her job, imagine the poor bugger who tries to break up with this woman at some point in time. I demand answers. When exactly did you fall out of love with me? What was the day that you turned?
You know what? You're going to get a boiled bunny if you do this to this girl. I don't recommend it. Stay away. Stay away.
All right, love you. We'll see you next week.
See you, Paul.